You would never know it to look at us. We eat, sleep, joke, argue, just like everyone else. People are adaptable, if anything. Behind it all, my family has kept a secret. One that has been gnawing away at us for generations. Every single one of us is cursed. Some more than others. Abby, my niece, is the least cursed of us all. She's only 12. Her time will come soon enough. Howard, my oldest brother, is the most cursed. He has always been a selfless man. And me, I fall somewhere in the middle. Our curses come yearly on the 10th of December, and we get to decide who among us will take them on. That's the extent of our control. My husband begged to take my place last year, but I declined. I could never let him do that. When we met and fell in love, he had no idea what he was getting into. I told him when he proposed. It just came flooding out of me that night by the lake while he knelt on one knee, ring in hand, staring at me in shock. I told him about the curses and the rules, and how they were the reason for all of my eccentricities. If you break them, you have to be prepared to pay, and pay dearly. I told him that I had considered breaking it off more than once. He wanted me anyway. I couldn't say no. Last year, as usual, the entire Adler family trickled to my parents' house on the 9th of December. Since inheriting it from my grandparents, Pie lived in their attic, only brought out to the living room when it was time. It was the name of the thing that gave us our curses. Pie. My great-great-grandpa called it that as a nickname when he was little, and it stuck. Its original name has been lost somewhere along the way. How my parents carry on day to day with it in the house, I don't know. Allie and I made our way inside with our luggage, having arrived late due to a delayed flight. Everyone else sat quietly waiting. There were a few nods of greeting, a couple of hugs, but the vibe as a whole was tense. In bed, Ollie leaned on his elbow and stared at me. I saw you talking to your sister and mom. They know who it's going to this time. I shook my head. No one does. We'll just play by ear tomorrow. He lay back down. It was only his second time in being a very organized person. He hated how we didn't talk about what was going to happen, or agree ahead of time which of us would take the curse. He never understood that we chose to put our heads in the sand 363 days a year. That it's the only way that we could cope. Some of us had curses that we had to constantly be on the lookout for, things that we had to avoid, and he just didn't understand the stress of it all yet. Howard can't take on another one, he mused. Neither can your folks. I rolled my back to him, not wanting to get into it right now. I already knew that I was doomed to a night without sleep, and I at least wanted it to be quiet. He continued, hushed. Liz is pregnant, so she's out. And Richie, is it? He's got a real bad one, so it's not fair that he takes another. John can't cause, well, he has issues. So, who does that leave? Babe, please, just leave it, okay? We can do this tomorrow. The bed moved as he slid over and snaked his arms around my waist. Abby, Nate, Helen, you. Please, just no more. He kissed the back of my head. And me. We ate breakfast around the big table. Bacon, eggs, juice, pancakes. Howard had rolled oats and coffee. Not much in his life wasn't impacted or restricted by his curses. Watching him broke my heart all over again. At noon, we drifted into the living room. Mom had placed pie on the mantelpiece. Looking at it, you would never know the misery that it caused. Carved from wood, it was a blocky, clumsy thing, that somewhat resembled a bullhead, except with a shortened snout and circular eyes. The mouth was ajar and carved out, just big enough for a hand to fit inside. Mom brought in the yellow book, our tattered guide to some of the curses compiled by someone or something, probably when all of this began. It had been added to a very long line of descendants over the years, as well. She placed it on the coffee table and took a seat, hissing as she did so. Her very last curse had not been written in the book, which left us in a scary limbo for fear of accidentally breaking a rule. In time, we realized it was a physical curse that had manifested as rheumatoid arthritis. We added it to the passages. Abby scooted onto the floor, staring up at Pi eagerly. "I can do this one, if you guys want me to." She was so brave, so much like her uncle and her father. Richie immediately began to sign in her general direction. Helen, my big sister, dressed in all black since her last curse vetoed colored clothing, put a soothing arm on him. It's all right. She won't be taking one." She shot a stern look at Abby, who stared at the floor, frowning. Richie went on. "You won't be either, Helen. We've given enough." "Yeah, well, that's how it works. Suck it up, the kids want to do it." John, my older brother, sniffed. He was shaking and kept licking his lips, probably withdrawing already, I realized. He didn't dare bring his smack into Mom and Dad's house. Heck, give it a few hours, and he would probably volunteer just so he could get it over and done with and go get his fix. Richie began signing some insulting things about John's life choices, and John sneered back. "Hey now." Dad began but interrupted himself with a coughing fit. This silenced everyone. He continued after getting a hold of himself. "We don't fight. We make a decision. No more, no less. Got it?" A mumble carried around the room. "All right then. So, we know who can't take this one on." Ollie glanced at me as Dad spoke, his expression grave. "That means it's only between a few of ya. You know who you are, so any hands?" Dad stared at each of us pointedly. He was the no-nonsense, rip the band-aid off type all my life. I knew, though, that it was a front. Last night, I heard him pacing right up until sunrise, and there was no doubt in his mind that he had been doing it long before we had arrived. The dark crevices under his eyes betrayed him. Howard held up a hand. Everyone stared at him surprised, yet not. "I can take another." "No, you cannot, mister," said Mom, her eyes immediately tearing up. I can take one more at minimum. You know it." "Howard," I said. He looked at me and smiled lopsidedly. Half of his face was heavily scarred, ever since he got the curse to burn some years ago. "You trying to steal the spotlight again? Well, I won't let you, you greedy son of a gun." He laughed, and then everyone was laughing. And then the laughter died down and it was silent and heavy again. My baby sister, Liz, made circles on her growing belly with a fingertip. Nate seemed hypnotized by it, his eyes full of love. He was the most eligible of all of us, aside from Ollie. He had only taken one, and it was an easy one. He was lucky. Maybe we should use that luck. I shot the thought down. Liz was expecting. What if Nate got a bad one? A really bad one? Liz could quite possibly become a single mother. I meant what I said before. I spoke up. "Sam," Ollie warned. I couldn't look at him. "It's my turn. I want to take this one." Mom and Dad looked deeply saddened, but they did not argue. No one did. It had to be done. I stood, but Ollie stood quicker. "I'll do it," he stated. "Here, right? I'll just put my hand in here." He went for the gaping maw of pie. I ran ahead of him, physically blocking me. "Don't be stupid." "I'm not. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking it, alright?" He tried to pass again and I shoved him back. "Sit down." He stared hard at me. He could overpower me and I could tell that he was considering it. "You made me a promise, Oliver, and I take promises very seriously. I get to choose when you take one. Don't break this promise. Don't do that to me." His eyes faltered, and then all of a sudden he sat down and wilted into the sofa, eyes closed. John scoffed and wiped his nose, about to launch into some kind of rant. Dad shot him a look and he immediately shut up. I turned and faced Pie. Circular eyes seemed to bore into me. I looked over my shoulder at Howard, his expression even and stoic at what I needed to continue. I stepped forward, hand out and flat, and slid it into the void. Instantly, a minor pain bloomed on the back of my hand, much like a pinch, and I snatched it back and immediately covered it with my other palm. My heart thumped like a racehorse. All eyes were on me and I could barely stand it. Suddenly, the memory of Richie receiving his last curse invaded my mind. The panic, Helen screaming, the way that he scratched at his eyes and mouth and tried to speak but couldn't, and tried to see but couldn't. Ollie scooted to the edge of the sofa. "What is it?" I took a deep breath and I peered at my mark. Small and black like an ink stain, it was the rough shape of a diamond. In a few months it would be gone, soaked up, unlike the curse that it represented. That was forever. "I don't recognize it," I said, though that didn't mean much. I had pored over the book a lot as a kid, but there were simply too many curses to memorize. I showed the mark to Mom. She moved the book to her lap and carefully began leafing through the pages, Abby hovering over her shoulder as she liked to do. A minute later she froze, eyes wide, finger pointed at a line on the page. "What?" I asked, voice pitching. "Just tell me." Ali squeezed my hand. His was sweating. 30 million heartbeats, Mom muttered. "Oh boy, that doesn't sound good." I almost fell down, but Ali kept me standing. "What does that mean?" he practically shouted. "It means," I stammered, "it means that's what I have left." "Wait," Abby cried. She wrested the book from Mom and stared into it. Richie frantically began signing again, but Helen stopped him gently. "The shape's not right. The top's wrong. Let me see." I walked to her on wobbly legs and offered her my hand. She studied it and then returned to the book. Mom looked awfully pale. I sat down beside her chair. "I'm right, see?" Abby smiled wildly. "It's not a million heartbeats. It's this one. Sleep foot east." "Foot east," I repeated, double-checking my marking against the curses. I closed the book with a soft thud and stared at Abby and then Ollie. "It matches." "Oh my God." Mom breathed shakily. "I'm so sorry. I thought, these old eyes of mine." I leaned over and hugged her. "It's all right. I'm very thankful for your old eyes right now." Howard erupted into laughter. Outside, we each bid each other farewell and exchanged the usual. Stay safe, look out for your curses. John was the first to leave, even though Mom and Dad had asked him to stay the night. And then Richie, Helen, and Abby. I hugged Abby extra tight. Nate and Liz left next. And as usual, Howard brushed them all off. He thought that it was wrong to have children because the curse could end with us if we didn't. But Mom and Dad insisted that it wasn't that easy. That to end the curse's lineage one way or another would have terrible consequences that would reach far outside of our family. They could never go into specifics. Those two seemed to have been lost to time. Howard waved out the window as the taxicab took him away. He didn't leave his home much, it's too risky, and he had no electricity. If I was lucky, he would reply to my letters. I said the final goodbyes to my parents. Dad had another coughing fit, and I waited with him until it was under control. "Go on. Enjoy the year as best as you can," he ordered me. Ollie and I got in the car. He took my hand and he ran his thumb over my mark. I still can't believe all this is real sometimes. Me either. He kissed the mark. I guess we have a bedroom to reorientate. We exchanged warm smiles. He was just trying to cheer me up and I appreciated it. But inside, I couldn't stop thinking about my curse. I always promised to be honest with Ollie. But there are some things that I can't bring myself to share even now. Things like the fact that Mom wasn't wrong. Abby was.